Tokyo, April 2026. From the outside, it looks like the pinnacle of human civilization. Clean streets, neon-lit skyscrapers, and a level of safety that the West can only dream of. But look closer at the crowds in Shinjuku. Notice the gray hair. Notice the quiet. Japan is not just aging, it is vanishing. We are witnessing the first controlled implosion of a superpower in modern history. For decades, the land of the rising sun has made a terrifying bet that they can survive without the one thing every other developed nation has embraced: mass immigration. But in April 2026, the math has finally broken the ideology. The shield of homogeneity has cracked. Today, we are diving into a demographic disaster so severe, it's changing the very definition of what it means to be Japanese. This is the story of a nation choosing a slow death over a change in identity. Let's look at the numbers, and let's be blunt. They are catastrophic. As of the latest reports from the Immigration Services Agency in March 2026, Japan's population is in a freefall. We are currently at roughly 123.1 million people. Since the peak in 2010, Japan has been losing a mid-sized city's worth of people every single year. But it's not just about how many people are gone, it's about the age avalanche. The fertility rate has hit a record low of 1.15. To keep a population stable, you need 2.1. Japan is in a death spiral. Adult diapers have been outselling baby diapers for over a decade. The median age is nearly 50. In rural provinces like Akita and Kochi, the lights are literally going out. Entire villages, the Genkai Shiraku, have reached a point where over half the population is over 65. There's no one left to fix the roads, no one to run the shops, and no one to bury the dead. By 2040, Japan will face a labor shortage of 11 million workers, 11 million vacancies that no machine can fill. The kinetic foundation of the third largest economy on Earth is evaporating in real time. For years, the Japanese government lied to itself. They claimed they didn't need immigrants. But behind the scenes, they built a shadow system of exploitation called the Technical Intern Training Program, or TITP, sold to the world as development aid. It was actually modern-day indentured servitude. These interns from Vietnam and Indonesia were funneled into the jobs no Japanese person wanted: the dirty, dangerous work in construction, fishing, and agriculture. They were underpaid, passports were confiscated, and abuse was rampant. Over 70% of participating businesses violated labor laws. They weren't training anyone. They were importing a disposable underclass to keep a dying economy on life support. In late 2025 and early 2026, this system was finally discarded, replaced by a desperate last-minute grab for global talent: 4,125,395. That is the official number released by the Immigration Services Agency in March 2026. For the first time in history, the number of foreign residents in Japan has surged past the 4.1 million mark. This is an increase of nearly 10% in a single year. To a Westerner, that might sound small, but for a nation that has defined itself through ethnic homogeneity for over 1,000 years, this is a systemic earthquake. Japan is no longer the pure nation it claims to be. From the mini Vietnams in suburban Tokyo to the Brazilian clusters in Gunma, Japan is becoming multicultural by necessity, not by choice. The mask of homogeneity is slipping, and the social friction is just beginning. We are seeing a 2026 Japan where the foreign variable is no longer a footnote. It is the only thing preventing a total economic shutdown. This isn't just a social theory, it's a physical, kinetic crisis. Let's talk about the 2024 problem, which has officially become the 2026 collapse. The government passed laws to protect truck drivers by capping overtime, a noble goal to stop karoshi, or death by overwork. But in a nation with no young people to replace them, that cap became a noose. As of April 2026, the logistics sector is facing a 14% capacity gap. On certain long-haul routes, that gap is as high as 20%. That means 1 out of every 5 packages simply cannot be delivered. Logistics secure the future, and in Japan, that future is blocked. Delivery delays are now measured in weeks. Small transport companies, the lifeblood of the islands, saw bankruptcies rise by 32% this year alone. This is the mathematics of decline in action. You can legislate for worker rights, but you cannot legislate people into existence. Without enough drivers, the 21.3 trillion yen supply chain that feeds Tokyo is starting to snap. Japan's grand plan was always automation. "The robots will save us," was the mantra of the 2000s and 10s. But in 2026, the Robot Mirage has faded into reality. While AI can handle data and robotic arms can build cars, they cannot care for a 90-year-old with dementia. They cannot maintain the complex social fabric of a community. Automation requires massive capital investment, capital that is drying up as the tax base shrinks. And even as the government opens the doors to specified skilled workers in hospitality, rail, and automotive sectors, the integration gap remains a canyon. Japan still scores at the bottom of international indices for anti-discrimination. Foreigners still struggle to rent apartments, with landlords openly refusing non-Japanese tenants. This is the ius sanguinis principle, blood over residency. Japanese leadership looks at the integration struggles of Europe, the riots in Sweden, the friction in France, and they have made a cold, calculated decision. They would rather be a smaller, poorer, but unified Japan than a larger, wealthier, but fractured one. It is a form of cultural suicide for the sake of cultural preservation. Japan stands at a crossroads that will determine the fate of every aging society on Earth. They are attempting a feat of social engineering that has never been tried, maintaining a first-world economy while the demographic foundation evaporates. By 2070, foreigners are projected to make up 10% of the population. The question is no longer whether Japan will become a country of immigration. The question is whether it will be prepared when it does. As the sun sets over Tokyo, the lights seem as bright as ever, but the shadow cast by the demographic cliff is growing longer. Japan is the canary in the coal mine. What is happening here today? The strike of the workers, the surge past the 4.12 million mark, the silent villages, is coming for Italy, for Germany, for the world. Japan's perfect image was a lie. The reality is a brutal, daily struggle for survival. The strike of the logistics sector in 2026 is the first tremor of a coming earthquake. The world is holding its breath, and Japan is waiting for the fallout. One thing is certain, the rising sun is entering a long, cold twilight.